I have an LG dehumidifier model No. LD651EBL. The bucket full light keeps coming on, shutting the dehumidifier off. The bucket hardly has any water in it. It also happens when I have a drain hose hooked up to it. Can I disable the switch or replace it? Should I just throw it away? I would only like to run it with a drain hose and not the bucket.
Hello, my name is Licensed HVAC Tech and welcome to the JustAnswer site. I'm sorry to hear you are having problems with your dehumidifier, and can I help? Please disregard any requests for a phone call as they are generated by the site and not by me. I'll return shortly with more information. Although I could not find a service manual for your specific model, I compared the one I found to the owner's manual for your model, and they are very similar, so I am confident with the information I'm about to impart. To answer your question, can I disable the switch or replace it? Yes, you can, but getting to it is the issue. In the service manual, the machine is broken down in steps, and to get to the bucket switch, quite a bit of disassembly is required. If you are willing, you can do the same and then bypass the switch. If you care to take this approach, let me know and I'll send you a link to the manual I found.
Okay, I'll give it a try as I need a project since we have shelter-in-place orders from the governor.
Okay, here is a link to the service manual for a model similar to yours that you can download for free. Dehumidifier. If you look at page 14, the bottom figure number 18 shows the micro switch assembly, which, from what I gather, is the bucket switch. Once you get to it, you can simply tie the two wires that go to it together and you will have bypassed it. Just don't try to use it with the bucket or else it will overflow. Also, since I do not know your skill level, when twisting the wires together, that you have good contact with the copper portion of the wire and that you insulate it so it won't short out due to exposure. Use a wire nut if possible or electrical tape. To do so, please scroll up, in most cases, until you see the star rating area at the top right of the page. Please know that I will stand by for any further questions, and you can follow up for next 10 days at no additional charge. Thank you for the opportunity to help you.
I have a box full of wire nuts, so if I can get to the bucket switch, I'll use one. Should be a fun project for today. Thanks.
You're welcome and best of luck. Any questions, just post and I'll see you've submitted it.
Well, I disable the micro switch and the dehumidifier runs, however no water is coming out even though the dehumidifier is running. So I'll throw it out.
Let's back up for a second. First, is the percent of humidity high enough for the humidistat to sense it and then tell the compressor to run? If it is not very humid in the space it occupies, the compressor will not run. Second, if you still have it apart, you can feel the compressor to see if it is running. If your dehumidifier is like mine, when you turn it on, the fan comes on and stays on, and you might be mistaking that for the unit running. Then the humidistat brings the compressor on or off as the percent RH, relative humidity, increases or decreases. You might just be hearing the fan and the compressor may not be running. With the unit apart, you can feel the compressor with your hand to look for vibration. No vibration equals not running, but that still is no indication that it is not working. The humidistat may not be cleaning for dehumidification. If you find that the compressor is running, you can place your fingers on each copper line attached to it. There are two. Caution: one of them is the discharge line and they can be very hot, so touch lightly at first. You should have one very warm to hot line and one cool to cold line. If the compressor is running and neither line feels warm or cool, then the unit has lost its refrigerant, and yes, you would throw it out. But if you must dispose of it, please be certain that it gets to a recycle center. There's oil in the compressor that needs to come out, and the copper and aluminum can be recycled. It's the right thing to do. Let me know how you make out.
Okay, I'll investigate it further.
Great, keep me posted.
Got to take it apart again as bucket full light is now on all the time. I'll have to check the wire nut where I cut the micro switch wires and splice them together. Compressor did kick in for a little bit and half cup of water came out.
Well, now you know it works. The compressor going off may be due to the percent of humidity?
Perhaps, but the bucket full light should not be on since I disabled the switch. This thus turns the whole dehumidifier off and disables the fan and compressor. I'll pull it apart now as it will only take 5 minutes.
Let me look at the literature I found because it did have a wiring diagram and I might be able to tell from that.
Okay, thanks. The fan is now running, the bucket full light is now off.
Unfortunately, the diagram just shows the bucket switch connected to the main circuit board, so no help there.
I have the unit outside where it is 50% humidity and dehumidifier is set to 35%. Fan just turned off. I just turned the unit off and on and the fan came back on. Compressor has not kicked on yet. Fan turned off again but compressor did not come on. I brought it back in and it worked for a while and the compressor came on, but now it turned off. Let me leave it on and see what happens in an hour or so. Bucket full light is on again. It took about a quarter of cup of moisture out of the air but is now not working because bucket full light is on.
I have the unit outside where it is 50% humidity and dehumidifier is set to 35%. Well, that rules out too low a humidity for it to work. Fan just turned off? Mine is designed to have the fan cycle off with the humidistat or run continuous. Perhaps yours is the same and it's set to go off? I just turned the unit off and on and the fan came back on. Now that is strange. Compressor has not kicked on yet? Not surprising because there is a built-in delay to start the compressor so that it won't be damaged if someone turns the unit on and then off again or short cycles the unit. I brought it back in and it worked for a while and the compressor came on, but now it turned off. Let me leave it on and see what happens in an hour or so. The compressor can go off for a few reasons. One is that the humidistat is satisfied, which under a 50% RH it shouldn't being set at 35%. I just looked to see if there is a way to bypass the sensor, but it is tied to the main board and subsequently I'm sure the board interprets whatever signal is sent by the sensor, which then determines that the compressor needs to run or not. So no way to bypass. Another reason the compressor can shut down is due to its safety overload. The device is mounted externally to the compressor but sits up against the shell. This is so it can sense the shell temperature and if too hot, shut the compressor down. Once the compressor cools, the device resets, the compressor runs and does the whole thing over again. About all you can check for is to see if the compressor is hot to the touch. If you are present when it goes off and can access the compressor easily, you can place your fingers on the top, and if you can't keep them there for more than a few seconds, the compressor is too hot. I've attached your photo that I marked up showing where to place your fingers. To the left of the arrow and under the plastic cover is where the safety overload is located. I also circled the wiring diagram and I'm going to ask you to take a photo of it and send it. That way I can see the actual diagram and perhaps shed some more light. If the compressor is running hot and shutting off on the OL. There are a few reasons for that. The number one reason is a dirty condenser coil. But on dehumidifiers, the condenser coil is found right alongside the evaporator and both get air through the filter in the front. So you can look to see if you see a buildup of dust, etc. Chances are there is no problem, but let's rule it out. The other reason compressors run hot is an issue with the compressor itself, like a mechanical failure that hasn't caused a complete failure yet, or the electrical start components. I need the diagram to see what components yours has to make a better determination. Bucket full light is on again. It took about a quarter of cup of moisture out of the air but is now not working because bucket full light is on. This has me puzzled because the switch you bypassed is either open, bucket full shuts unit, or closed, bucket empty unit can run. Twisting the wires together simulates the closed switch, so why and how is the light coming on? Unless you have a poor electrical connection at the wire nut. Send the diagram and let's see if we can't get this resolved by tying the wires together.
I checked the wire but connection and it is secure.
Which wire? For the bucket switch?
The bucket switch wire is fastened good with a wire nut. I disconnected the power and the unit cranked right up when I plugged it in again. I set the humidity to 40%.
Makes me wonder if A, there is another switch. Or B, the main PCB is messed up and giving all the wrong signals, such as bucket is full, turn on the light, bucket is not full, turn off the light. Run the fan, don't run the fan. Run the compressor, don't run the compressor. See what I mean? Under the conditions you have, high enough humidity and switch bypassed, the unit should take off and run, period. And I see you've just restarted it and it runs. Send the photo of the diagram please and I'll see if I can spot anything.
Okay, compressor is on, it is very slightly warm. Unit just turned off.
Warm to the touch is normal, so it shouldn't shut down on overtemp. And now it's off. I'm thinking more and more it's the PCB.
Just started again. Fan is running. Waiting for compressor to kick in. I think the compressor is running as it's vibrating to my touch. It feels warm, not hot.
Yes, you would feel vibrations. You can also feel the two copper lines. The bare one should be very warm to hot, so be careful, and the insulated one should be cool. Going to mark up your diagram and send it back. In the attached diagram I've circled the overload and the item labeled RY comp, and without knowing more I cannot figure out what that switch does. Also how it is activated. If it were a mechanically operated switch, there is usually a dotted line going to wherever the knob is located that makes changes. This has nothing of the kind, and that troubles me because it could be opening, causing the compressor to go off, but why? I am pretty much out of ideas here. About the only other thing I can suggest is to reach out to LG and see if they offer support or service. If support is available you might get it resolved, but I doubt it because of liability. That is, they will refrain from telling a consumer to stick their hands into an operating machine where they can get hurt or electrocuted. But sometimes service is done at a reasonable flat rate. Won't know until you inquire. So sorry I can't help beyond this. You made a good try at figuring out the problem. Here's the diagram.
It turned off after 5 minutes or so.
My guess? It's the board.
Then it's headed to the trash. Thanks again for the help.
U.
If you have a home improvement or appliance question and want to chat with an expert now, visit justanswer.com/YTHI.